Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, excellencies. A delight to be with you today to address one of the hottest topics in the international agenda, competition versus cooperation in the remit of critical minerals. I'm really delighted to have such a distinguished set of panelists with me. I'm going after 2 minutes introduction to introduce all of them to you to discuss. They are all extremely qualified to address key angles of this equation. So let me start by the fact that, of course, competition on critical minerals is now on the spotlight. We've seen how export restrictions of rare earth and permanent magnets, in fact consisting of licenses that were requested from a number of companies by China, has started quite a wide number of industries worldwide, because now people start to realize that critical minerals feed into clean energy technologies, but also digital industries, and last but not least, defense. So they are critical to a lot of future industries. But let me emphasize from the outset that such restrictions, such non-cooperative approaches, and even coercion is not new. In the early 2010 already, we've seen restrictions of air exports towards Japan that has led Japan to cooperate with Australia to overcome this problem. And at the OECD, we monitor export restrictions, trade restrictions across the board in many sectors. And our inventory of such restrictions have found recently, as we updated it, that over the past 10 years, it is in the critical mineral sectors that such restrictions have increased the most, fivefold in 10 years. So we are witnesses, this is very clear, a rise of resource nationalism. This concerns producer countries, but there is a race to access the resources by consuming countries as well, OECD member countries. A year and a half ago, there was the hope that, at least on the OECD side, and even broadly speaking between consumer and producer countries, this competition could be overcome. For instance, with a platform like the Mineral Security Partnership, there was an attempt by the US and other OECD countries and the EU to get closer to each other, and then they created an MSP forum so as to have a partnership approach with producer countries. But progress since then has been slow, and so we are facing enhanced competition with a risk which is more fragmented value chains, therefore delays in the cost reductions of critical industries, and potentially in reaching the net zero objective, and in other industries which are very important nowadays as well. We are facing the same problem. So let me very quickly introduce our distinguished guests. We have with us Mrs. Ana Brnabic, who's President of the National Assembly of Serbia and former Prime Minister of Serbia, a very close friend of the OECD. Very glad to have you with us. Mr. Turki Albaptein, Deputy Minister for Mining Affairs at the Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources of Saudi Arabia. I think it's interesting to see that we have under his portfolio both mining but also industrialization. That's probably testimony of the large supply chain broad approach of Saudi Arabia, but I'm sure the minister will give us clues about that. And last but not least, we have Mrs. Kadri Simon, former Commissioner for Energy of the European Union and member of the Global Council for Responsible Transition Minerals. Ministers, ladies, gentlemen, really great to have you with us today. So without further ado, we will have a first set of questions. I will ask you a couple of questions. If you can address them in no more both questions than 4 or 5 minutes, that will be great. Then we will have another round of roughly 10 minutes, and at the end it will be really good if we can have an interactive exchange with the floor, with the public. So without further ado, I start with you, Mrs. Anabrabic. What we would like to know is, of course, we have all followed very closely the very large lithium project of Rio Tinto in Serbia. There are huge hopes on the part of the European Union to tap on this potential to feed into electric batteries in particular and other industries. We've seen as well that there have been protests. So my question is simple. For you, what will be the main priorities to ensure that this project has a social alliance to operate, that the public is reassured? What would be the commitments that you would recommend to take, that you are ready to take, so as to ensure this buy-in and at the same time the alignment with the European ambitions on critical minerals?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I can confirm that Serbia does have a very significant lithium reserves. Significant in a way that the estimation is that can meet even as much as 90% of current lithium demand in the European Union. I'm happy to say that that last year we have signed basically a strategic partnership agreement with the EU, because we made basically a strategic, also political decision that we want our lithium to be, as an EU accession country, that we want our lithium to be part of European sustainability and competitiveness. But that also is meant to ensure that in eventual lithium exploitation, the environmental and social standards of the European Union, meaning highest in the world, will be followed and respected, which is our priority for our people. Currently, the project is undergoing the environmental impact assessment. We will probably have results of the environmental impact assessment in about 18 months, I would say. And with that in mind, we will basically make a final decision on whether to proceed or not. In the meantime, it has been the lithium project in Serbia has been selected as one of the 13 strategic projects for European Union in terms of critical raw materials. And in parallel, what's important for us is to continue very transparent and open communication with our citizens, especially in the local area where the deposits are, to make sure that they are informed and engaged and involved in the project.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Anabrabic. Another question, which is to some extent related, you stressed that it is one of the strategic projects of the European Union. Europe is facing quite a large degree of dependency regarding the supply of critical minerals, and this has led several European countries to pump up exploration and production. So there are a number of European regions that are involved in the mining of critical minerals. Do you think that domestic production is a solution to reducing Europe's dependence and circumventing the pitfalls of fragmented supply chains?
I do, but I do believe that actually you really hit the nail on the head. It's about supply chains. If we can actually bring all of the supply chains to Europe, for us, it's also important that if we have lithium, that the entire supply chain is preferably in Serbia, so that the added value actually stays in Serbia. Serbia will, we hope one day become a fully fledged member of the European Union, so it's still the same family of nations. But yes, without supply chains, it doesn't mean much. But I do believe that Europe has the capacity and also enough of innovation to make sure that all of the supply chains are sourced in Europe, and not just that, that actually more in terms of technology and innovation is then brought about by different European startups, companies, in cooperation with different countries in terms of public-private partnerships.
Thank you so much. Your turn, Minister Turkey, Al-Babtain. We are seeing some really important development on the fields of critical minerals. I had the privilege to attend the Future Minerals Forum of Saudi Arabia already, and I'll be representing again the OECD this year in January. So, I mean, clearly, we are seeing that there are large ambitions through, in particular, Ma'aden, you're a mining champion, but also Manara Minerals, which is a subset of the public investment fund. And it's clear that you promote a value chain approach. And as I said, your title really shows that it's not only extraction that is at stake, but you have ambition also for the downstream segments of the value chain. So can you perhaps post us a little bit of what are your global mineral ambitions and their relations with the industrialization of the kingdom in particular?
Thank you, Karim, and it's a delight to share the stage with distinguished guests, lending our voice to a cause that is vital to achieving the world diversification and electrification goals. So Saudi Arabia is an emerging global mineral hub. We are making a gradual and a committed shift from just being a producing nation to leading mineral resilience and sustainability in the sector. Our mining sector transformation is not simply an industrial reform, it's a generational vision under Vision 2030, a blueprint designed to position Saudi Arabia, or the sector, the mining sector in Saudi Arabia as the third pillar of our national economy alongside oil and gas and petrochemical. So it's a shift from extraction to value creation, from resource management to global resilience. Our strategy is basically structured into two mutually reinforcing fronts. First, domestically, we are unlocking over $2.5 trillion of mineral potential by creating an investment climate that is built on stability, transparency, and investor confidence. This, of course, includes revamping our international mining investment law to be among the best competitive globally. We're also implementing a major regional geoscience program, the largest actually globally, covering more than 600,000 square kilometers. We have also opened the National Geological Database, which contains 80 years of data for investors to help them make investment decisions, in addition to offering very competitive incentives, including, for example, exploration incentive program, which is designed to de-risk early stage exploration. The second dimension is the global resilience. So we have created Manara Minerals, which is a joint venture between the Public Investment Fund and Ma'aden, the national mining company, with the aim of investing in international mining assets in countries such as Africa, Latin America, and Asia to secure essential inputs for global industry and support the emerging economy. So this dual approach ensures that the kingdom build self-resilience while still reinforcing global mineral supply stability. And by this, we are creating an investment climate grounded in transparency, the rule of law, and digital efficiency. But we're not just stopping at mining. Saudi Arabia is also aspires to be the world's most trusted mineral hub, a point where geology, innovation, and governance converge. Our geographic advantage connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe allow us to serve as an industrial and logistical bridge for global value chain. So through large-scale industrial zones, the availability of renewable energy and policy consistency, We have created a competitive ecosystem for global investors. An example, for example, is Ras Al Khair Industrial City, which is home to one of the world's largest advanced aluminum and steel complexes supported by low carbon and port access. Also in Wa'd al-Shamal, we have a model for integrated phosphate and fertilizer production, strengthening global food security. And we're also planning and building new emerging industries such as the battery materials for EVs, titanium metal, rare earth industries and magnets, and green steel, which is critical for sustainability. One of the major transformation initiatives we have also is the National Industrial Strategy, which prioritizes 12 manufacturing sectors in Saudi Arabia. So both the National Mining Strategy and the National Industrial Strategy link these mineral value chains to automotive, aerospace, renewable energy, and advanced manufacturing. So this transformation is converting Saudi Arabia from resource nation into an industrial leader, turning mineral potential into a sustainable engine of innovation, employment, and economic diversification.
Thank you so much. We are following this very closely, and we've noticed that you have successfully indeed attracted foreign investment in electric vehicles, in particular, both from China and from the US. I was reading in the FT this morning that you had reached 5 gigawatt of solar electricity generation from solar. That's a strong progress in a few years. So now, in 1 or 2 minutes, if you can, I mean, we're at the Paris Peace Forum, and I stressed in my introduction the risks that stem from enhanced competition in this sector. So I would like to know from your perspective, what could be the contribution of Saudi Arabia, and in particular of the future, the platform that you have launched, the Future Mineral Forum, to more international cooperation in this remit?
Sure. So the Future Mineral Forum, or the FMF, has evolved into a serious global platform for mineral diplomacy and sustainable development. More than 90 senior governments, officials from Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and other parts of the world are participating to collaborate on responsible and sustainable mineral development to address the sector challenges. So through the forum and its government-led ministerial roundtable, we have initiated several transformative projects. We are leading discussions on establishing a network of center of excellence across Africa, Asia, to drive capacity building. We are also setting a regional expectation for responsible critical minerals and developing an international critical mineral framework to position the region as a global leader in critical minerals. So these mechanisms align with the IMF Resilience and Sustainability Trust, the WTO Fair Trade Agenda, and the ISO Sustainability Standards. And together they create a global framework for responsible mineral trade, improving governance and fiscal stability in developing economies. So in summary, Saudi Arabia's approach goes beyond economics. It's a commitment to peace through prosperity by bridging producers and consumer nations. It ensures that minerals become a platform for shared growth, regional stability, and long-term resilience.
Thank you so much. I think that better benefit sharing along the value chain between producer and consuming countries will be of essence to ensure indeed the sustainability of the sector. Mrs. Simpson, your turn now. You've been a commissioner to the European Union. I was stressing earlier that Europe is making efforts in terms of enhancing expenditures for exploration, extraction. At the same time, it is quite significantly dependent from the outside to ensure its supply of critical minerals. So there have been measures that have been taken, the Raw Materials Act, which plans, I think, to have 20% of production happening locally within the jurisdiction of the Union, 40% of processing, and if 25% of recycling, if I recollect correctly. And then partnership agreements with producer countries have also been concluded. Do you think that it will do the job to ensure the autonomy of the Union?
The short answer is no, and that's why last week the follow-up actions were announced. But overall, I do believe that European Union has one core pillar, and this is free movement of goods and services. And we are also the union who has benefited a lot because globally we have had a fair trade with our partners. And even at this very moment, when we see clear signals of trade war, Europe is still committed for partnerships that are mutually beneficial, and we are not planning to close our borders. Saying that, right now the word dependency equals to vulnerability, especially since 2022 when Russia used its leverage and weaponized gas supply. So what we learned then was that this is your vulnerability if you are overly dependent on one single supplier and if you cannot trust this supplier. In the battery sector, we are dependent on 90% by one single supplier. And this was one of the reasons why European Commission presented Critical Raw Minerals Act, and this became law last year. So the aim is not to close our borders. On the contrary, we will always need our partners. But we want to diversify so that no single producer will have bigger share than 60%, and 60% is a lot. Keeping in mind that demand is growing very fast. So there is really development in the past few years in Europe where you see that renewable installations have been fast-tracked. Now the renewables are producing more electricity than all fossil sources combined, and this process will continue. We have also made our commitment to support our partners so that they can cover their growing energy demand with newly added renewables. This market is growing very fast. But we want to also send a message to our partners who are resource-rich countries that we don't ask them to mine more just to allow us to close our coal mines, because this is, well, the simplification. We will stop burning coal and we will replace it with renewables, and for that we need some materials. This is why we are prioritizing recycling. So a lot of these materials are already here, but recycling is expensive, takes time, needs a lot of R&D, but someone has to do that. And if you scale up the recycling, then soon it is economically meaningful activity. So indeed, at this Critical Raw Materials Act, 50% target was set, and at this very moment, this is very challenging, but we have always proved that we meet our targets, even if they are very ambitious.
Thank you so much. It's true that recycling is important. At the same time, according to the data from the IEA, by 2040, 25% of the input in consumer countries in particular could be provided by recycling, but it seems to be a ceiling. And on top of this, if you take the locations where most of the recycling facilities are based at the moment, it's China, for a simple reason. It's because recycling often takes place close to the production sites, and out of 240 gigafactories, 200 are located in China. So against this background, there are skeptics that challenge the possibility for the Union to successfully access all the minerals that it needs. I would like to know the degree to which you are confident that through the partnership agreements that the Union has broken, you think that Europe can address its security of supply challenge.
I agree that recycling will not meet our demand, but this is a message we have to send that we avoid wasteful action, and we are also opting for these solutions that are not so easy but make sense. Then the other thing is that we do have also mines in Europe, but the scale is relatively modest. So Finland, Portugal, they do have lithium mines, they have full cycle. But if you compare this with our partners, then Finland, Portugal combined produce 1% as Australia produces annually. So once again, we cannot meet without our partners our demand. And that's why we are signing these memorandums of understandings. We do have several. I myself signed some of them only last year. But President von der Leyen last week, when she announced Resource EU Action Plan, and maybe I will have later a moment to touch up on that too, mentioned some of the key partner countries, Canada, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, to mention a few of them.
Thank you so much. We'll go into another round of questions. If possible, I would ask you to really limit your interventions to 2-3 minutes so that we can take a few questions from the floor. Starting with you again, Mrs. Mrabic. Anna, you stressed earlier that Serbia would hope, with being endowed with a large deposit of lithium, to gradually cover the whole of the value chain. I think it's the ambition of a lot of countries, but we face also a situation whereby if you take electric batteries, for instance, there are 3 players in terms of countries. It's China, 2/3 of the market. Then you have Korea, that is, I mean, they don't totally catch up, but they resist with several brands like SK, Samsung, they have 20-25%. And then Japan with Panasonic, perhaps 8-9%. So the reality is that those who are successful at the moment in developing cost-effective batteries are only Asian countries. There's been an experience, Northvolt, in Europe, which after having raised $18 billion is now filing bankruptcy files under the US law. So what is your confidence that Europe can generate an autochthonous battery industry, or perhaps, you know, do you foresee also the possibility to attract foreign investors that are currently successful to fulfill your industrialization ambitions?
Yes, I think it's one of the key challenges if we can be innovative enough and competitive enough to catch up with these technologies, especially in batteries. But then again, you also think about, you know, whether you need the kind of, you know, what kind of batteries do you need, and based on what kind of technology. I think Chinese succeeded in getting a more environmentally friendly technology with LFP batteries. And I think perhaps the mistake was here that we weren't in Europe. When I speak about Europe, we weren't innovative enough. In Serbia, for example, quite surprisingly, we have a fantastic startup. It's called 11S, which developed actually LFP batteries. They're still not yet cost competitive to Chinese producers, obviously also because of the economies of scale. But I agree with Kadri. I think that you know, we cannot be overly dependent on one single source. So in that respect, I think, you know, we need to invest more in innovation, research and development to catch up. And again, what are we producing lithium batteries for? Because they are different. You know, is it for electric vehicles, for electric large vehicles such as trucks? Is it for large storage systems? You know, these are all very different batteries, and perhaps we, you know, all of us kind of, you know, I mean, we are not still part of the EU, but again, as part of the strategic partnership on critical mineral resources, we should sit down and do some kind of analysis to see where we can be competitive, and then at least take some niche part of market, you know, and then be able to compete in that respect, or have that, you know, kind of leverage at least in something. So I think it's possible, and I think that you know, if we think strategically, and again, considering that actually Europe does have its you know, deposits of critical raw materials, and is investing in recycling, if we can figure this part of a puzzle out, then I actually do think that Europe as a continent can be self-sustainable to a large extent. Although, I mean, it is kind of one of the European values to be open and to nurture partnerships. So in that respect, certainly doesn't mean that, you know, self-sustainable is to just rely on yourself, but to have enough of safety, but then still work with others.
These are such important points. Of course, the technology innovation dimension is critical, a way of ensuring that the environmental footprint is not too strong, and that at the same time there is security of supply, is precisely innovation. There's a lot of research that is deployed in the area of batteries at the moment. You rightly stressed LFP that compete with NMC, but there's also work on solid state, sodium ion, and we should not be short-sighted, and we shouldn't trap as well producer countries into one or two commodities that could face swings in the market and therefore hamper their development prospects. Dear Turkey, you highlighted earlier that you put together this large platform with countries from Central Asia, Africa, and you stressed as well the willingness to promote cooperation and the sharing of benefits along the value chains. I would like to ask you a question about Africa. Africa is vastly endowed with mineral resources. We are seeing Saudi Arabia having more and more stakes in the mineral sectors of some African countries. What is your vision of the cooperation with Africa on this issue?
Yes, thank you. So, as you know, Saudi Arabia enjoys a very strong and strategic relationship with most of the African countries, and we have been really, you know, cooperating at multiple fronts, not just in the mining sector, but as well as many other sectors. I can cite an example: our development funds, which also finances developmental and infrastructure projects in Africa. This is also something is very key that we are looking forward to leveraging that also, and including also mining projects that can be financed. We are also cooperating through the Future Mineral Forum, as Africa now is a very important part of the super region, as it holds a significant amount of minerals that could supply the world needs of that is required to achieve the electrification and diversification goals. So we think Saudi Arabia can complement Africa through Africa has the mineral resources. Saudi Arabia also has some of these resources, but also we do have strong competitive advantages in infrastructure, in power, and financing, and we can work with Africa in building sustainable development in Africa, as well as in Saudi Arabia to supply the global needs.
That's a very insightful response about the complementarities and the respective comparative advantages of the two sides. Mrs. Simpson now, still in the same vein, because we are in the Paris Peace Forum, and I think everybody concurs that cooperation to reach a certain number of global goals is of essence. What are the key ingredients, according to you, that should be put in the partnership agreements between the European Union and some producer countries to ensure that there's a good sharing of benefits along the value chain.
Well, this is very understandable that resource-rich countries do expect that they will not only give away their natural resources, but on the contrary, this wealth of resources will create well-paid, solid jobs. And from European Union side, we have been signing agreements, not only addressing the mining sector, but there is also a processing side, saying that it is clear that building up small refineries across the globe can never be as efficient as using refineries in one location. You have to find means how to support this kind of activity. There might be a financial support just to diversify the supply chain, or requirements that our consumers cannot buy all the necessary feedstock from one single supplier. And this brings me to the current situation where different market players are stockpiling different commodities. And just last week's announcement that even the European Union considers stockpiling some resources is echoing the same sentiment, that you don't trust that the access to commodities is secured. You need to create a strategic reserves. And that means that that might solve actually the chicken and egg question, that there will be demand for certain kind of producers. Sure, European Union will not stockpile starting tomorrow. It takes some time, but it creates very attractive possibilities for our partners.
Thank you so much. We still have some time to take a few questions from the floor, so I will try to take at least 2, 3. We'll see. Please stay succinct, because that will offer the opportunity to a few more people to interact. Address your questions to one of the panelists and introduce yourselves. Please.
Hi, I have a question for Ana Brnabic. I'm sure you and everyone else here are very aware of the student-led protests that have been happening in Serbia lately, but even before that there was protests specifically about the extraction of lithium. So my question to you is, how do you think that the future actions of the Serbian government will affect the people's trust in the government, and what effects do you think this might have?
Anna, perhaps you can address it, and then we'll take 2 or 3 other questions.
Yeah, sure. I think that we need to be able to communicate in the most transparent possible terms with our public about lithium as well as anything else. We had huge protests about lithium exploitation, but that also gets us to the question of, the cost-benefit analysis. We all want to prevent climate change. We all want to have, therefore, electric vehicles. We all want to have renewable energy sources. For renewable energy sources which are intermittent, we need to have large storage capacities. Those storage capacities will basically rely on lithium batteries at least for another 2 decades. So it's about, it's also about pragmatic approach. I understand that people are concerned about environment, but you can't be concerned about environment when you are kind of extracting the materials that help you preserve the environment and combat climate change. So I think that, in terms of public education and public awareness, we need to do much better job.
This is so true. I feel obliged to intervene because we work a lot on this at the OECD, and all the data, and that the International Energy Agency as well, their data show that even if there are emissions that are created by extraction when it's not produced on the base of renewable sources, along the life cycle of the vehicles, electric vehicles vis-à-vis internal combustion engines, still you have less emissions. And extraction does not take place in a vacuum. More extraction of critical minerals means less projects of fossil fuels. And so the data show as well that if we stick to a net zero goal, by 2050 we have 2/3 extraction less than what would happen without more critical mineral extraction feeding into renewable energy technologies. One or two other questions? Perhaps the lady here.
Hello. Oh. So my question is to Her Excellency Ms. Simon. It's very related to the last question about the lithium mining, particularly the Jadar Valley in Serbia. So it happened a few years ago. This was brought up. It was about to happen, but was shut down by environmental protests, people concerned about the environment. And now we're seeing these deals renewed and the initiative restarted, but it's going to come at the cost of pollution in Serbia for the EU to benefit from this lithium and back its green transition. And since this is presented as something that will bring Serbia to closer to the EU and its EU accession, I want to also link this to the increasingly violent response to student-led protests in Serbia. So what does this, in the bigger picture, what does this tell us not only about Serbia's will as a candidate state to accede to the EU, but what does this tell us about the priorities of the EU when it comes to enlargement?
Mrs. Simpson.
I strongly believe that these kind of environmental protests, they are part of everyday life. And we do have similar protests all across Europe. Either they are against mining, well, mainly against continuation of the coal mining, but they are also against renewable projects, so against installing new wind farms, even against massive installation of solar panels due to the fact from where the materials are coming from. And I myself, I met with the biggest environmental groups represented in Brussels in 2022, and I begged them that please allow us to shorten the permitting, because only this way we can get rid of our dependency of imported fossil fuels. So in 2022 it was the year when Europe lost Russian gas, but it was also the very first year when we were able to produce more electricity from renewables than from gas. Saying that, Serbia is one of the European countries, so this is very logical that you act already as a future member, because one day Serbia is a member, and we are treating our partner countries the same way as our own member states, requesting them to respect same high standards, also in mining.
Thank you so much. Anna, I think you want to react on this. 30 seconds so that we have the time to take a last question.
Yes, just very briefly, just to tell you about how weird and crazy this sometimes gets. Serbia relies still 70% of Serbia's electricity we get from coal, and that is lithium, which is like dirtiest coal of all, which we mine in Serbia. We never ever once had demonstrations against coal mining, and these are open pit mines. They leave like moon fields. We never once had a protest against coal mines. This is a lithium mine, which would be an underground closed pit mine where people would be able to continue with agriculture, lithium under the EU standards. And we have numerous year after year demonstrations and protests. So I'm speaking about the lack of public awareness and sometimes actually a fashion to protest against something when you're not protesting against other things that are actually killing our environment and polluting our air, in which lithium could never do.
Thank you so much. Very, very important. I will take one last question for Minister Turkey Al-Babtain, and then we will close because we are reaching the end. So one question. Yeah, you can go ahead, please. Sorry. You can address it at the end. Okay, later.
Merci beaucoup. Ma question va s'adresser
Thank you very much.
Madame Simpson.
My question is for
Tout à l'heure,
Kadri Simpson.
Daou, je pense que Karim Daou, il a dit que l'Afrique est riche
Earlier,
de
Karim
minerais
Daou
critiques, tout autant
said
que l'Arabie
that
Saoudite également, et qu'il compte
Africa and Saudi Arabia were rich in mineral
travailler dans un
resources,
cadre de partenariat gagnant-gagnant.
and
Ils
the
ont un
minister said that he wants to
comparatif,
work in a
c'est
win-win
la technologie et
framework,
les
and also talked about
financements, tout à fait
comparative
vrai.
advantages, technology, and
je
financing. This
dirais
is
à Madame
absolutely
Simpson,
true.
est-ce que vous ne
I
pensez
would
pas
like
que ça
to
doit être
tell
également la
Ms.
posture
Simpson,
de l'Union
do you not
européenne
think
aujourd'hui,
that the European
puisse
Union
venir
should
en
also
Afrique,
think
non
along
pas
these
avec des
terms
contrats
so that they don't approach Africa in an unbalanced manner, but that the partnership has to be balanced so that it is win-win for Africa, who's obviously rich in natural resources, but those resources have to be beneficial for African populations. Please, could you wrap it up? Sorry, we've gone beyond. Yes, I will hurry up. Do you think that the European Union and the countries of Europe should do what Saudi Arabia is doing in terms of working with Africa? And they were involved in a forum in Senegal.
Give one word of conclusion. Please go ahead.
Thank you. And European Union is very dedicated to support Africa. Just one example. European Commission, together with African Commission, is designing the single African electricity market. At that one day allows African countries to trade electricity across the borders. So in Europe, due to the fact that our 27 member states and some neighbors like Ukraine, Balkan countries are interconnected, consumers each year win significantly. Prices are more affordable. And by partnering with Africa, allowing African countries to build out their transmission grids, for example, we plan to share the same benefit and, from our side, expertise. You need energy to be able to maximize benefits from your resources, and this is something where we are really taking our cooperation very seriously. Thank you.
Yes, and this is already happening. Zambia, its equity markets are booming because of expansion, deployment of solar panels and progress in energy storage, and they are selling to neighboring countries. We are running out of time. I will ask each of the panelists to conclude with just a few words. What would be the words that would characterize a brighter, more cooperative future for critical minerals? So I start with you, Anna.
Thank you. For me, the message is very simple and clear. We should not actually ever again in the world create mining colonies. So never ever in the world, in no country, should we have the policy of extract and export. If we extract from a country, then we need, all of us need to make sure that people in this country actually enjoy the benefits of their own minerals. So never extract, export. Make sure that the supply chains, or at least part of the supply chains, are there.
Yeah, not recreate mining colonies. It's a powerful message. Turkey, your turn.
Sure. I believe the world today faces not a shortage of minerals, but also a shortage of coordination. This coordination now is needed in a new compact way that should include and links transparency, finance, and technology under shared responsibility. And I would like to take this opportunity to invite you all to Riyadh in January, where we're hosting the 5th edition of the Future Mineral Forum under the theme Dawn of a Global Cause. So you are welcome to attend and to be part of the discussion for the future of mining for a more secure, responsible, and sustainable future.
Thank you so much. I can tell you that as far as I'm concerned, I'll be there. Mrs. Simpson, for you, the conclusion, last words.
First of all, I want to thank my fellow panelists, very interesting panel, and audience. European Union has always been a champion of supporting multilateralism, and I truly believe that we all will benefit if there will be no need to build fragmented supply chains, and if some kind of trust will be rebuilt in the global trade. Saying that, mutually beneficial partnerships are also good way to go forward, and this is something where Europe can lead by example and set very high standards, respecting its partners and really making these trade agreements beneficial also for the receiving part.
Thank you so much. I think you will all concur with me that they have made the panel extraordinarily interesting. They have addressed the whole supply chain equation, not touching only on extraction, but innovation, technology substitution, cooperation versus competition, and also comparing what's happening in the mineral sector with its competitors, fossil fuels, environmental sustainability. I myself was very pleased to moderate this panel, so I would like you really to give our panelists a very strong round of applause.